Is there any proof that this child is truly carrying my blood?
That's absolutely impossible. Yet, as I looked at the DNA test results my husband was holding, I decided to take a stance of denial.
Stop playing the victim. I can't believe you would do something like this. We're getting a divorce. Be prepared to pay alimony.
Though my husband, Michael, said this with a confident and triumphant smirk, a few days later, his true colors would be revealed through an authentic and accurate DNA test. My name is Sarah. We've been married for just 6 months, still very much in the honeymoon phase of our marriage. Our relationship started as a workplace romance, and we decided to get married when I found out I was pregnant. Our marriage is what you'd call a shotgun wedding. We never imagined having children before marriage. Being pregnant made me nervous about what others might think, and there was a time when I considered abortion. However, despite taking precautions, I miraculously got pregnant. Thinking about our baby made us love them more and more, feeling like this was meant to be. I decided to convince my husband, Michael, please, I want to bring this child into the world. And I hope that you will be by my side as their father.
But think about it. This is a shotgun wedding. It's quite embarrassing to even discuss whether we should get married at this stage.
That might be true, but it's not that our relationship itself is embarrassing. I believe the people around us will understand. I truly believe it's better for us to stand together and declare that we will raise this child, rather than silently watch my belly grow. You, who initially had reservations about a shotgun wedding, eventually chose to marry me. I was filled with anxiety, worrying if you were harboring any dissatisfaction internally. Fortunately, our journey towards marriage went smoothly. We were able to share the news of our marriage and pregnancy at work just as planned. My colleagues, including my boss, were all very supportive of us, and they even praised Michael, saying, "He is a man who will truly take responsibility." Among them, my boss, Mr. Smith, was particularly caring about my health, ensuring I could avoid heavy labor, and helped facilitate smooth transitions and workload sharing with my colleagues. Thanks to Mr. Smith, I was able to go through my pregnancy without overexerting myself, while continuing to work. So, starting tomorrow, I will be on maternity leave. I apologize for any inconvenience this may cause everyone, and I kindly ask for your support during my absence. Before my maternity leave, I expressed my heartfelt gratitude and requests to the entire department. I received warm words of encouragement from everyone, take care, and I expressed my deep gratitude with a smile. As everyone returned to their work, Mr. Smith called out to me. I always felt a sense of security from his kind demeanor and deep compassion, and I was truly grateful to have worked under him.
I truly appreciate your hard work up until today, despite not feeling well recently and having difficulty moving around. From now on, please prioritize your health, get plenty of rest, and approach childbirth with peace of mind.
I'm really grateful for your kind words. Thank you so much.
But you don't look well. Are you sure you are all right? If there is anything troubling you, please do not hesitate to speak up.
I was momentarily taken aback by his words and tried to dismiss it quickly, but it didn't seem to work, and Mr. Smith continued to express his concern.
Recently, your husband, Michael, also seems to be very busy. He always seems to be chased by work.
He was right. Michael worked in a different department, and he seemed even busier with work than before. While my colleagues encouraged me, saying, "It's great that he's earning money," the situation at home was different. Everything was smooth from when we met until we got married, but our life after marriage was nothing like what I had envisioned. Michael was cold towards me, and even when I was suffering from morning sickness, he looked at me with cold eyes. If housework was neglected, he clearly showed irritation. In fact, his indifferent attitude became even more prominent after I found out I was pregnant. He showed almost no interest in the pregnancy or the baby to come. As my body and mind went through changes to become a mother, Michael didn't seem to have any awareness or readiness to be a father. This was the harsh reality of our cold marriage life. I spent my days working outside, and when I came home, I had no choice but to act like a housemaid. Gradually, I myself started to clearly feel the love I once had for Michael fading away. Each time I witnessed him doing nothing at home, I could feel my disgust towards him growing. And finally, the time came for me to give birth. It took longer than expected after the contractions started, but eventually both the baby and I were in good health after the birth. The moment the baby cried for the first time, I felt a deep sense of relief, and when I felt the small body of the baby against my skin, I was so moved that I couldn't hold back my tears. Hey, Michael. He's really adorable.
Yeah.
At that time, Michael was sitting next to me on a chair, but his reaction seemed as if he was thinking about something else. He just responded while playing with his smartphone, giving a vacant reply. Seeing him not even properly looking at his own child, not even taking a picture, I was deeply disappointed in Michael. I even felt anger. Afterward, a midwife entered the room and had a little chat with me. After a while, the baby started crying. Michael stood up without saying anything and left the room. He never visited the hospital again, and I was left to learn how to take care of the baby on my own. My health was a bit unstable, so I had to stay in the hospital longer than planned. But I was finally able to go home safely. There were several pairs of shoes scattered around the entrance, and it seemed like someone had visited. Wondering who it could be, I stepped into the living room, and there were my in-laws, whom I had never seen at the hospital during my delivery, sitting with very stern expressions. Next to them sat Michael with a strangely triumphant smirk on his face, which seemed bizarre to me. Excuse me, is there some kind of problem? I asked with a confused expression, while unconsciously tightening my grip on the baby in my arms. Seeing me like that, Michael said in an angry voice.
Is that child really mine?
His words resonated throughout the room, and the atmosphere froze in an instant. The in-laws in front of me were glaring at me, and it was clear they were not on my side. I was engulfed in a whirlwind of confusion about why he would say such a thing. My body, still exhausted from giving birth, was so dizzy that it swayed. Wait a minute. What do you mean by that? This child is undoubtedly yours.
Here, take a good look at this.
I stared intently at the document that Michael had placed on the table, trying to comprehend its contents. The paper was titled DNA Paternity Test Results, and I searched through the unfamiliar format to find the results section. The words parent-child relationship denied were clearly written there. This can't be right. It must be a mistake.
There's no way a paternity test would lie.
Even if he really isn't the father, think about why we decided to get married. My voice was strong and pressing, but Michael responded confidently with a smile on his face, unfazed by my interrogation. At that moment, I clearly understood in my heart that the DNA test results were wrong, but I couldn't comprehend how he could be so assertive and confrontational. Then, my in-laws raised their voices in anger.
The marriage was too sudden. We thought something was off. How could this happen with this wicked woman?
We want you to divorce our son immediately. You've shown us your true colors, and we never knew.
I swear, I haven't done anything foolish.
We cannot accept a child from such a woman as our grandchild. We hope this is the last time we see you.
This is truly unpleasant. The baby doesn't resemble Sarah or anyone else for that matter.
You're wrong. This child is. My voice broke into tears, and they mercilessly showered not only me but also my innocent, newborn child with words of blame. My heart was deeply wounded, and I felt an unprecedented pain. I realized the difficulty of proving the truth and the injustice of being accused of something I hadn't done. The baby's features weren't clearly similar to ours yet, which only cornered me further. I couldn't say anything more, and all I could do was cry shamefully. In this overwhelming situation, a calm part of my mind began to doubt. Is this DNA test report showing the truth? I sighed heavily, harboring deep doubts. In that moment, Michael suddenly stood up, kicking his chair away.
Are you playing the victim here? I can't believe it, really. This marriage is over. And make sure you're ready to pay a hefty alimony because I will definitely be demanding it.
My in-laws and Michael stood up and followed, coldly and sternly staring at me and my baby just like before. It has become unbearable for me to stay in this place. My heart was in turmoil, desperately searching for a way out. Honestly, my relationship with my parents and relatives is distant, and I'm unsure if I can even rely on them. Just give me a little time. Saying that, I reached for my bag again. The baby started to cry, but no one other than me seemed to care. I staggered out of the house, heading towards the station. Despite the brightness outside, my heart was sinking into endless darkness. Now, I was at my parents' house, a place I hadn't visited since getting married. I had informed my parents about the baby's safe arrival. My mom's response over the phone wasn't very emotional. She just replied firmly, "Good job." After being kicked out by Michael and my in-laws, I felt that living in a regular hotel was impossible, so I contacted my parents as a last resort. In the end, my dad came to pick me up in his car. Tears naturally flowed as I remembered the times he used to drop me off and pick me up from cram school. My parents were extremely strict, especially regarding my academics. They carefully monitored my daily study hours and set strict goals, providing thorough guidance. When I became a high school student and started thinking for myself, I began to show a rebellious attitude. Realizing that my desired future and education path were not going as planned, my parents eventually chose to set me free. Taking that as a sign of freedom, I moved out of my parents' house when I entered college, using the initial funds from my grandparents and money earned from part-time jobs to live on my own. Despite maintaining a certain distance, I made an abrupt return home, but my parents did not blame me. Instead, they warmly welcomed me and my baby. They generally took care of the baby, helping with meal preparation and laundry, and occasionally checking on the baby's condition. It may be different from the typical return home after childbirth, but just having a place to sleep brought me great relief. However, the painful scenes from that time still appear in my dreams, and I wake up in the worst mood, being called a cheating woman. Exhausted and stressed to the limit, I received a message of concern from a colleague at work. It seems that various rumors about my relationship with Michael were circulating within the company. Among them, it was said that Michael himself was spreading the rumor that I cheated, and as a result, she had a child. Actually, I needed to talk to someone about this situation. So, I decided to confide in a colleague. As a result, the story gradually spread, and before I knew it, a wave of sympathy for Michael was rising. The content I shared with my colleague gradually spread, and eventually, many people started to sympathize with Michael. However, among the people I work with in the same department, there were those who doubted that this cheating story might be a false rumor. They believed in my innocence and supported me. In such a situation, I received a call of concern from my boss, Mr. Smith. I decided to share everything about the recent events and my current anxious feelings with him without holding back.
I've heard about those rumors too. Indeed, there are many suspicious points when you hear the story. However, you don't need to worry. All of us in our department, including myself, believe that you are not that kind of person.
I could feel a certain strength in Mr. Smith's words, along with his polite language. I felt that maybe he was getting angry for my sake. I recognized once again that Mr. Smith is a reliable person. At that moment, I decided to take the plunge and confide everything to him. Actually, I didn't cheat. This child is Michael's. Could you please help me prove it?
If that's the case, why don't you try taking the DNA test again? Another option is to use a detective agency to investigate Michael's behavior. If you're worried about the budget, I can offer financial support.
I was about to refuse, saying that's too much, but Mr. Smith assured me that he would definitely be able to help. Mr. Smith, a reliable supporter, encouraged me strongly, saying,
Don't worry, I will fully support you.
Tears of gratitude filled my eyes, and all I could do was repeatedly express my thanks. At that moment, I made a firm resolution within myself, agreed with his suggestion, and chose to take action accordingly. A week has passed since I returned to my parents' house. I left my child with my parents and went to meet with Michael and his parents to have a dialogue. Michael greeted me with confidence, but his parents seemed to be reluctantly attending the meeting.
So, may we start discussing the claims we have?
Before we discuss that, I have a request. Could we take the DNA test once again? And this time, I want to use blood for the test instead of hair. Could you please come with me to the hospital right now to take the test?
Why are you bringing this up now? Wasn't the previous test conclusive enough? You've seen the results, right? It showed a 99.9% probability that I'm not the father. The facts won't change now, no matter what you say. Trying to dredge up this story again, just because you don't want to pay damages, is truly a despicable act, don't you think?
Why are you so opposed to taking the DNA test again? I hope I'm wrong, but it's not because the previous test results were tampered with in some way, is it? I threw a pointed question at him while trying to gauge his reaction. Michael's complexion clearly changed. I was trying to figure out if he was angry or disturbed. If we go directly to the hospital and have blood drawn on the spot, there's no chance for any foul play. If the previous test was accurate, there should be no problem in taking it again. Don't worry about the cost. I will cover everything. Or are you planning to run away because you have something to hide? I directly challenged him, trying to draw out any doubts he might have been harboring. At this point, Michael's parents also joined in the conversation.
Michael, I think it might be a good idea to take the test. That way, this woman will clearly see how disgraceful her situation is.
That's right. The results won't change anyway. We're on your side, Michael. Don't worry.
I continued to pay close attention to Michael's changing attitude. The composure he had shown at the beginning of the conversation was now completely gone. He stared at one point on the table, and after a moment of silence, he slowly opened his mouth.
Fine, I'll take the test.
I chose my words carefully and spoke slowly but firmly, expressing my thoughts. Let's all go to the hospital together, I suggested. In response, the in-laws decided to accompany us, and all four of us headed to the hospital. Even though I knew I was innocent, I desperately waited for the results of the retest. After a few days, the long-awaited results finally reached me. The probability of being the father is over 99.9%. It read. I took the test report in my hand and showed it to them clearly. Although the result was as expected, it was still a moment of relief for me. Just like last time, Michael and his parents were gathered in front of me, but this time, their faces were pale. As I observed them closely, the father-in-law started to tremble, stood up, and began to shake Michael's shoulders violently.
Michael, what is the meaning of this? Have you been deceiving us all this time? And what about the previous test report? Explain yourself.
I really can't grasp what's happening right now.
In that moment, Michael fell silent, bowing his head. On the other hand, father-in-law showed his intense anger with a flushed face, while mother-in-law herself was confused yet shedding tears. I quietly, but closely, observed their reactions. "Can you explain this to me?" I managed to keep my composure while urging Michael to speak, speaking in a tone that was calm yet made sure to reach his heart. In response to my prompting, Michael finally seemed to lose his resistance. He let out a deep sigh and heavily dropped his shoulders. "The truth is, the result of the previous DNA test was a fake. I secretly took a sample of a friend's hair and submitted it as my own for the test," he confessed. He felt obligated to marry me because of pressure from his parents, bosses, and colleagues, even though it wasn't what he truly wanted from the bottom of his heart. I wanted to avoid being in a position of responsibility in case of a divorce. So, I tried to make it look like I was not the bad guy, framed Sarah as the villain, and planned to get sympathy from people around me as well as the alimony. After Michael finished speaking, his parents were momentarily lost for words, standing there with blank expressions. Indeed, the horrible things they had said to me and our child were unforgivable, but even taking that into account, considering how much they had believed in and supported their son, the shock they must be feeling was immeasurable. But still, you didn't have to go that far. You have your own child. Why did you even think about divorce? Michael fell silent once again, not uttering a single word. Breaking the silence, I slowly placed something I had been holding onto the table. "You've been seeing other women, haven't you? And when I got pregnant, things became inconvenient for you, right?" The results of the investigation I requested from the detective agency revealed that Michael had been having an affair with a female coworker. This relationship had continued from the time he started dating me, and it didn't stop even after we got married. In other words, he was two-timing me, all while continuing our relationship.
I am truly sorry.
Choosing my words carefully, I spoke clearly to Michael. In that moment, Michael let out a heavy sigh and began to cry while suppressing his voice. I felt strongly that I should be the one crying, but by that point my tear ducts were completely dry, and not a single tear could come out anymore. "Then, let's walk our separate paths through divorce. However, don't forget that you have the responsibility to pay alimony. Also, the higher-ups at the company are already aware of this situation. So don't even dream of going back to your past life," I said clearly. "If I inform my colleagues and superiors about this, Michael's position in the company will naturally change." Then, I quietly turned to my in-laws and continued speaking. "I believe the truth has come to light here today. This child is undoubtedly born from me and Michael, and is your grandchild by blood." Both the father-in-law and mother-in-law intensely observed my expression, putting their last hopes in it. However, I will never forget the hurtful words you spoke at that time. From now on, I have no intention of acknowledging you as the grandparents of this child. You don't find this child lovely, do you? You said so yourselves, so please don't use the word grandchild anymore. I want you to never interfere in our lives again. Having said that with determination, my in-laws just hung their heads and covered their faces with their hands. Neither Michael nor my in-laws had anything more to ask of us. In the end, without any words of apology from my in-laws, I left the place. I returned to my room to pack up my last belongings. Once all of these items are carefully packed, I plan to immediately send them to my parents' house. After that, I intend to take my time searching for the next place to live. During the period of maternity leave, taking care of the baby is essential, and I am fulfilling that responsibility. Inside the company, just as I predicted, the problem caused by Michael has spread, and the manliness he showed at the beginning of our marriage and the sympathy for him have completely vanished. I contacted the woman Michael was having an affair with through a lawyer, and in the end, she chose to resign from the company on her own. Michael himself lost trust, his performance declined, and as a result, he was demoted. His bad reputation has spread here and there, and now I hear he spends his days enduring the behind-the-scenes talking of his colleagues. In this complex situation involving alimony and child support, he is currently living at his parents' house and continuing to work. Occasionally, he receives support from my parents, and thanks to that, the baby is growing well. My body is tired from the lack of sleep, but the baby's smile is so angelic that just seeing it blows all my fatigue away, and I spend my days feeling healed. The strong support from Mr. Smith has been indispensable in enduring this lonely and harsh situation. I first got to know him through a consultation about the appraisal, and since then, he has become increasingly concerned about me and the baby, offering his support. It started with occasionally meeting him during walks, and now he visits our house and helps take care of the baby. I can see that he deeply loves the baby, and watching the two of them together, I too feel a sense of relief and happiness from the bottom of my heart. Mr. Smith, who had my full trust, had a gentle personality and was a reliable person when it mattered most. Without realizing it, I came to see him not just as my boss, but also as a trustworthy figure from the bottom of my heart. Eventually, I found myself harboring special romantic feelings for him. As time passed, an indescribable deep bond formed between us, and we naturally came to understand each other's feelings, which led to us starting a relationship. Mr. Smith spoke to me kindly.
Sarah, if it's okay with you, would you and your child like to live together with me? There's plenty of room here.
I was surprised by his words. Is that? He continued.
Please, marry me.
In that moment, I felt an unprecedented happiness, and I cried tears of joy, so much that it troubled him. My first marriage was very tough, and my heart was constantly hurt, but thanks to the generous support and help from the people around me, I was able to find the utmost happiness in the end. Spending time with my beloved child and Mr. Smith, whom I love from the bottom of my heart, is the most valuable and blissful moment in this world for me. I truly feel like the happiest person in the world.